Hey, what's up? This is Chosen, and this is going to be a video where I did a takeover to help someone build a Trunda, and we're going to show how they had Trunda built before, and then some of the things that are going through your head when it's time to build them and do a takeover for it. I'll show the before and the after, the stats, and how everything compares, and the whole thought process of it. And then I'll also show you some interesting data as to how important ignore defense is. We'll start plugging numbers in a calculator, and we'll talk about exactly why the Savage and the Lethal sets are so ridiculously strong on Trunda and why you should always be trying to get them on her as a champion. So this should be a fun one, just talking about a Trunda build and takeover. So let's get into it. Alrighty, so obviously Trunda is one of the more famous hard-hitting AoE nukers in the game. She's got 2 AoE abilities, and her Forge Rhythm is ridiculous because it can hit twice. You can see here that place HP burn debuff for 2 turns enemies under a stun, and place an extra hit on enemies not under a stun. So it's really important to build her with low accuracy if you want to maximize the damage, because as long as she doesn't have the accuracy to place that stun that she does on the first attack, and it's only a 70% chance, you can't book it to 100. So there's a 30% chance that she won't place it no matter what. Well, actually a 33%, because even if she has 1,000 accuracy, her odds to miss could be low. So even with high accuracy, there's a 33% chance you'll hit someone twice. But if you build her in really low accuracy, you're increasing the odds that someone will resist that stun, and thus making her hit twice, which will make her do insane damage when the Forge Rhythm procs the double hit. So you'll see a lot of people that are prioritizing her damage to have her as a nuker be really trying to get her accuracy as low as possible. So let's go ahead and pull up the before. This was the build right here. Then you can see the one that is currently live after I finished putting the Trunda together. And I'll talk about the input that I would give for them going forward, because obviously it's never going to be perfect. There's always things you're going to be working on for the future. So the before, you can see here, we've got a bunch of broken sets. With really the only set bonus we've got is crit damage, and crit damage is great on Trunda, but we're not getting any ignore defense. We're not getting cruel set or savage or lethal. And with a champion that scales as high as Trunda, every point of defense that you can ignore gives you insane output because it scales so hard. So the first thing that I was looking to do is make sure I can get her in some really good Savage gear that they've got on their account. Hopefully they've got enough Savage gear to make that happen. Also, a really big deal, you can see the 73% crit rate plus 15 is only going to be an 88% crit rate. And I can pull the pen out here to show you what I'm talking about. So you see right here, the 73% crit rate, and then over to the right, with the finalized build, we've got the perfect 15 plus 85, giving us the 100% crit rate. Like with crit, how insane her multipliers are. Crit and ignore defense have to happen. So you really, you don't even want to be at 99%. You'd rather have a little bit extra and make sure you're critting than be at like 97, 98% and be missing those crits, because it's so crucial, because her role is to deal damage and hit super hard. So when she doesn't do that, she's kind of wasting her turn. So you've got to get her to be 100% crit rate. It's super important. So that was a couple of the first things that really stood out to me. I need to get her ignoring defense, and I need to get her crit rate capped to 100 for sure. And then if we look down at the accuracy, we've got 172 accuracy. Now, it's never going to be perfect because you've got a great haul and stuff giving you accuracy, but you can see I really prioritized on the right side. I got the accuracy down from the plus 162 to the plus 110, which is basically as low as it's going to go. And you can actually get a breakdown of this on the total stats page. You can see right here on the bottom line, it's showing the accuracy, and I actually got it down to 0 from artifacts that you see way over there on the left side. We're getting nothing from artifacts. It's just the 80 from the Great Hall, and then the 10 from her base stat, getting us to 90, and then the 30 from the Faction Guardians. If they really wanted to min-max Trunda's damage, they could honestly remove that part of the Faction Guardians and then and have it be even more of a guarantee. I don't think that's necessarily needed, because you're probably still going to land the double hit more often than not, as long as you've got it down there low in that 120 to 130 range ideally. And then you can see that I made a change on the banner. It's obviously different. We'll talk about some of the gearing choices. I made a change on the amulet, And also the ring, this is a super important one. You can see that I changed it to a 6-star reaction piece. Reaction is an absolutely bonkers good arena set. So if you've got a really good reaction piece, you're gonna want that on Trunda just to make her that much better in the arena, because that's the main point of where you're gonna get value from her. So I definitely made sure to get a lay of the land and see if they have any good reaction pieces that I can make sure to get on Trunda. And then obviously the set bonus from just the crit damage that we already talked about, and then making sure to get the Savage set on there as well. So now let's go over each individual piece and we'll walk through the whole thought process here. So for the banner, they had a different banner on there, but I made sure to get the attack on there. Obviously, we want to get her attack to be as high as possible. That's her job, and she scales so well. Her multipliers are so good, getting the double hit, the ignoring defense, and all of that. So this was a pretty good one. It's got speed and attack as a main stat. Even better would be a 6-star version of this that would double roll speed or something, because it is a little bit tough to get speed on your Trunda if you're trying to build her in attack percent boots, which are really good on her, as long as you've got good enough substats and glyphs to make it work. I also had to change the amulet out because they had an amulet that had accuracy on it. So I rolled up 2 or 3 amulets to see which one would completely avoid accuracy. It is possible. It's tough. Most of them are going to at least have one single roll of accuracy on there. Ideally, you would get an amulet that has 0 like this one, and it has attack and resistance, defense, and HP. So that's really the perfect route that you're going for your Trunda. And obviously, you're always going to want one with a crit damage main stat for sure. And then a reaction piece here. It does at least have the attack percent, and we got a good glyph on there at 5. It would have been nice to have 1 or 2 rolls on the attack, but that's a pretty savagely good reaction ring there. So definitely had to make sure and get that over on Trunda. Then for the artifacts, I was able to find these attack percent savage boots that roll double crit rate, and they're basically perfect. They're basically perfect for Trunda. So they like, you can min-max this by getting a better glyph on the speed. You could get another 4 or 5 speed easily on her by glyphing that. And but attack percent boots with double crit damage, resistance is absolutely amazing. The resistance could be like an HP or something, but you got everything you need. The attack percent, crit rate, crit damage, and speed. So I had to get those on Trunda, especially given that they're the Savage set. It's a great piece to put on her. Then for the chest, obviously, super lucky that they had a Savage chest that is 6-star attack with both speed and not having accuracy on it. Now, ideally, the flat defense would have been crit rate. That would have made it a lot easier for me to get the build done, because obviously I want to use crit damage gloves on my Trunda and then try to get crit rate from maybe set bonuses and sets and stuff. So I ended up having to go with the fatal set just to get that 5 crit rate, and you can see it got me to the perfect 85 plus 15. Now if this chest had crit rate as a substat instead of the flat defense, I probably could avoid the fatal set and go with something like cruel to get some of the attack and the ignore defense and stuff. So there is obviously, the gear is never going to be perfect, but I had to go this route to kind of make everything work and synergize. But these ended up being really great because 6-star crit damage, that's super important on Trunda. And then it's got what you're looking for, attack, speed, and crit rate. And then it has a defense percent to boot as well. Then as we dive up into the weapons on top, they're a lot more simple because they're always going to be the same flat stat. So we just need to get enough crit rate to get her up to the crit cap of a 100. So I've got to look for a lot of things that have a lot of crit rate on them, which meant that I had to sacrifice maybe some other rolls that I wanted, like a little bit more speed or even an attack percentage. Ideally, this shield here would have attack percent on it, is probably what you're thinking. But if you're newer to raid, shields actually cannot roll attack on them at all, and then weapons cannot roll defense on them at all. So you definitely want attack on your weapon with Trunda, and then the fact that this is a Savage piece with triple crit rate is really what I needed to make this build work. And then the helm being double speed there as well. This is not a very good helm because it's got flat defense and it doesn't have any attack on it or anything. So the helm is definitely a piece that could get a lot better. But the nice thing is they've got some opportunities to increase the speed a little bit because their speed is a little bit low. What they really need to do is find a chest that has crit rate on it then they could forego the fatal set and get something better on there like Cruel to ignore even more defense, or even like a crit damage set or something. But that's actually, you know, the 15% attack is super good on her, so it's really not that bad, but Cruel would be better because you're ignoring a little bit more defense. So then this was the stats up top. We have got before, and then down here was after I was done kind of switching the gear around. So you can see it ended up going pretty well because we got more HP. We got way more attack. We got 2K more attack, and then we even got a little bit more defense. Now, like I said, the one thing that is a little bit lower than I would like is the 185 speed, but they could easily min-max that by getting a better helm and just using a few glyphs. They could easily get that up above 200, and then that would be fine. Trunda doesn't need to be a speed goddess, especially when you're pairing her with somebody like they were on their account. They're pairing her with an Arbiter typically, so Arbiter is a very high speed champion that's going to boost turn meter and kind of make up some of that difference. So they also actually were using her with a speed booster. They're using like Arbiter, Lydia type setup. So as long as you have a speed booster and a turn meter, the speed can be a little bit low, but ideally you do want to at least get that up to like 200 or 210 or so. The crit rate is absolutely perfect, and then the crit damage, it would be great to get this a little bit higher, but the priority is getting crit capped and getting the Savage set on there. But they can definitely min max this crit rate here and get that up around 240 something would be ideal by min-maxing some of the substats there. And if they got to like 250 or something, that would be incredible if they were able to hit these other parameters as well. Resistance is nice, 293. You don't really need to go crazy on the accuracy and the resistance. The main thing is this this accuracy that you want to be super low. You can see before it was 172, and we got that all the way down to a 120. We lost 52 on the accuracy. So all in all, I'm pretty happy with how it went. They just need to get a little bit more speed to get it optimized, and then maybe a little bit more crit damage if they can squeeze out a little bit more optimized gear and kind of min-max the substats a little bit better. And I also want to talk to you about something which is crit damage and ignore defense and how they kind of work together, because you might be seeing this and you might be saying to yourself, come on, they went from 276 crit damage to 223. Like, there's no way that's better. Crit damage is the best stat in the game for damage dealers, but I'm going to show you behind the numbers as to how important ignore defense is. And actually the 223% crit damage with the Savage set is way far superior than the 276 without a Savage set. So let's go ahead and pull up the spreadsheet for calculations. You know me, you know how we do it on the channel. But this is one that my good friend Adam Maxis has put in a lot of work putting together here, and we've had kind of floating around the Chofly community for a while to go ahead and plug in some of these numbers and see to be able to answer some of these questions, like, is it worth it to lose 40 crit damage if it means I'm adding the Savage set? To answer things like that and be able to plug it in and actually see it, what you can expect to happen, is really handy. So that's what I did here. We input the stats. Really the only thing that matters is going to be the attack value right here. Let me switch to a better color to see here. Let's go with blue, might be a little bit easier. So we put in the attack, that's the main thing, and then the percent gear from stats of ignoring defense. So this is going to be 25 from the gear, and then Helm Smasher is a 50-50 shot to ignore 25% more. So what I did, I considered that 12%. It's not going to happen every time, so I went with what we can kind of expect as an average, which is 12%. So I went from 25 to 37 there on the ignore defense, and then we're getting the increased attack buff from the Arbiter that we are with, and then being paired with the Lydia, you're getting the defense down and the weaken, and then you can kind of estimate some of these values here for the enemy defense and HP to kind of see what kind of damage you're going to do and how hard you're going to hit based on what they have. And then the masteries, there's a couple different masteries that are going to buff up Trunda's damage, so we put that in there as well. I didn't worry about Methodical or Helm Smasher because I already kind of, in my own way for this, included Helm Smasher in a pseudo way on the ignore defense, and the Methodical is just for the A1, so I wasn't worried about that. I want to know how hard her A3 and her A2 are going to be hitting in a nuke setup in the arena. And I know it's a lot to look at, but don't worry, I'm going to do my best to walk you through it. So the main things we want to be looking at when we're doing this is we're mostly worried about the A2 and the A3. So we want to look at the booked A2 average damage right here. And then we want to look at the booked A3 damage on average right here. So that's kind of the two little boxes that we want to look at, is right here and then also right here. So I'll clean that up for you a little bit, where it just kind of cleanly shows the booked A2 average damage and the booked A3 average damage, because they did have their Trunda booked. So that's going to be mainly what I'm focusing on here. I'm trying to get an idea of the average performance these abilities are going to put out based on the build and how the different numbers are going to affect them. So then let's go ahead and pop up top right, and you can see I've got some of these damage numbers pulled up, a screenshot that I took from me going ahead and testing in battles, and then I'm going to kind of show you how this works. So you can see that we've got the two different damage numbers from the Forge Rhythm hitting twice. So this Arbiter here in the middle, we'll talk about that one. You can see here we got the 73 and the 81. There's always a little bit of a damage range. That's why you see down here on the bottom, you've got the minimum expected, and then the maximum expected, and then the average. So this was the A3, the Forge Rhythm, and we're expected to be hitting a 3,500 defense target for around 158,000 on the A3 that happened here, but we didn't quite hit the Arbiter for 158,000. We hit for a little bit less than that, because the 73 plus the 81 is obviously about 154, and we're going to expect to average about 158 on most of these attacks. But obviously there's going to be some ranges in there. If we hit a bunch of times, we'd be hitting anywhere from like maybe 145 if we got a couple of those like 72s, or if we got a couple like 83s, it could be 166. So you're going to get a little bit of a range there, but what it means is, I put in 3,500 because that's a pretty typical defense you're probably going to see on a more support or tanky type champion in the arena. Obviously, if it's a Valkyrie or some crazy defense champion, you're going to see 5,000, 6,000, Iron Brago, whatever, something like that. But on a typical like tanky support like Arbiter, you're probably going to be somewhere between like 3,000 and 4,000 typically. And then you notice top right how all of these things say ignore defense 6 different times. That's the 3 different hits from the Forge Rhythm. And that doesn't necessarily mean that Helm Smasher was lucky enough to proc all 6 times, because it's going to say ignore defense because of the effect from the Savage set, which is guaranteed. The Savage set is just a flat 25% ignore defense. There's no RNG in it or anything. That's why the Savage set is so insane. You're just getting so much damage. But it could also be proccing Helm Smasher on some of those and maybe not on some of them. Like for this one on the left, maybe we got a Helm Smasher proc, and maybe for this one down here we didn't. It's hard to say for sure, but you can kind of tell, especially if you ran this a bunch of times, you would start to see when you got that bonus from Helm Smasher or not, because obviously ignoring defense is an insane increase to your damage output. And then now I promised you I would show you some of the numbers and how it works on how impactful Savage is. So let's say our average opponent's going to have 3,500 defense in the arena. Some are going to have a little bit less, some are going to have a little bit more, maybe even around 4,000 actually, because you're going to face some high defense champions that are easily 5,000, 6,000, and then your lower ones will be 2,000, 2,500, maybe whatever. So let's put 4,000 in there for the defense and what we would expect to hit. So let me show you how important Savage is. So remember, we went down to 223% crit damage. So I mean, lost some crit damage to do so. So if I remove the Savage set, which means I have to remove 25 from the ignore defense, that's going to become 12. Now, before I do that, let's see how hard I'm hitting here on the booked A3. It looks like 145 is what I'm going to be hitting for. So if we lower this to 12, sorry, 12 right there, we take away the 25 of the Savage set, we go from 145 all the way down to 112. So how much crit damage would I have to add to get back to that 145 that we were at from losing the Savage set? So let's go from 223 to 243. Let's say we're able to add a crit damage set by doing that. Nope, we're nowhere near the 145 that we were there on the bottom with the booked A3. Okay, so let's go from 243. Let's say we squeeze out a little bit more and we get to 250. Nope, nowhere near the 145 that we were. Let's go all the way up to 300 crit damage. That's gotta do it, right? Nope, we're still a little bit below. We're still at 139 instead of 145. So where do we gotta get to? 312, getting close. 315, close, not quite. 318, and there we go. At 318, we are at 145. We were at 223 before with Savage set. So you can see the Savage set is almost worth 100 crit damage in this scenario with this Trunda build. If we're hitting somebody at this defense, it's actually going to be even more impactful if you're attacking somebody like a Martyr or a Valkyrie or an Iron Brago that has even more defense, because then the more defense ignore is even more impactful. So yeah, instead of being at 318 crit damage, we can pop this down to 223 like we were, and then add the Savage set 25% ignore defense, and we are up at the 145 like that. So I thought it would be fun to just kind of show you how it's calculated and how insanely impactful ignore defense is, why the Helm Smasher, the passive is so, or mastery, sorry. I'm a Diablo 3 player, so I always think of them as passives, but they're masteries in this game. So yeah, the Helm Smasher mastery, why it's so insane, and why the Savage set is so insane on someone that scales as crazy as Trunda does. So yeah, like I said, in closing, the last things I would tell them, probably on the way out, after I'm done, is to maybe try and get a 6-star attack banner that would have a double speed roll on it. That would be a definite upgrade. And then try to get a 6-star weapon, because that's a big source of attack. You can get a lot more of the attack there on the main stat, but it's going to be tough to replace that triple crit rate. So maybe look out for a chest piece that has crit rate as a substat. That would be an opportunity to maybe have some more leeway on getting that 6-star weapon, or maybe replacing the fatal set with a cruel set or something to try to get a little bit more ignore defense. And the worst piece of the whole build is probably the helm, because you're really not getting a whole lot of crit rate or speed, but you could always glyph it, put like a 3-star glyph on it, and get a little bit more speed, because that would be the last thing I would mention, is that the speed is a little bit low. So you're going to want to try to get that up a little bit, ideally to around 200 or so, 200 to 210, and somewhere in there would be perfectly fine for her in the context that she's being used. And they should be able to achieve that with glyphs within the next couple weeks or so, as they're kind of farming them up, and if they prioritize spending them on Trunda and getting that done. So that's going to do it for me on this one. Let me know your thoughts down below. And as always, if the video helped you out, it helps the channel out a lot if you would take the time to like and subscribe. I always appreciate you guys and interacting with you as well down in the comment section. So that will do it for me on this one. As always, thanks for watching. Have a good rest of your day. Peace.